Hi guys, so in this quick video what I'd like to talk about is a way of diagnosing or of assessing anxiety. So the reason I want to talk about this is because there is a lot of people at the moment, but there's always been a lot of people really that are not sure if what they're struggling with is anxiety or whether it's just part of their personality or whether it's just that they're feeling anxious. And there are three different things. So generalized anxiety disorder is an actual diagnosis that you get from a doctor, which is saying that your anxiety levels are higher than the average person and that there is usually a treatment plan in place. So that's very, you need to understand that, because for many people, they're just saying, right, I've got anxiety. How do you know? Well, I just feel it. I just get nervous at certain things. And when I break it down sometimes with people, I'll say, well, give me an idea of the times where you felt nervous. And they'll say, well, before I go into a meeting, or because I've got an exam due, or if I have to go and speak on stage in front of a crowd. And my response to that usually is those situations you've described are what the majority of people would feel nervous about. You know, it would be unnatural not to feel nervous if you've got an exam, or if so it's, although people do know themselves if they're feeling different from how they've felt, using a diagnostic way of looking at things is sometimes helpful. The reason it's helpful is because if you go to your GP and they do a full assessment and then they diagnose you, then they'll put a treatment plan in place. It doesn't always have to be medical either. I think a lot of people are scared of going to their doctor because they automatically think medication. Doctors do recommend counselling as well. And even me as a counsellor, I don't always say to people, go to your GP. I'll just ask, do you have a diagnosed disorder of anxiety, or is it that you feel you have anxiety? Because it's very different. And also being anxious and having anxiety is different. So there's a document which I sometimes use and which is well known, and it's called the GAD-7 form. Now, GAD-7 just means generalized anxiety disorder. And I don't know, the 7 probably means it's probably the 7th form that has been created about this. And all it does, this is a really good way, and you can find this on Google. You can do a Google search of the GAD-7 form. Just put GAD-7, it will come up. It's a way of assessing whether you potentially have anxiety or not. So the questions on here, there is literally 7 questions. Maybe that's what's the GAD-7, 7 questions. Number 1, it asks you to rate these things over the last 2 weeks, and you need to think whether they apply not at all, over several days, more than half of the days over those 2 weeks, or nearly every day. So this is what you would be looking at. Over the last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by the following problems? Feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge? So you would say, have you felt that? Not at all, over several days, more than half the days, nearly every day. Number 2, not being able to stop or control worrying. Number 3 is worrying too much about different things. So the first one is the ruminating thoughts, so not being able to control the worrying. And then the second one is worrying about different things. So maybe it's worrying about your bills, then worry about this, and then worrying about that, and then worrying about your child, whether they're going to be okay at school, then lots of different things. The fourth one is trouble relaxing. The fifth one is being so restless that it's hard to sit still at all. So if you're normally quite calm and you're normally able to sit down, now there's a difference between this and someone who's always been busy and you're always running around and you never sit down and relax. This is more about when you are sat on the chair, you are restless, fidgety. So people with anxiety, a lot of the time, can't sit still. So restlessness is one of the key things with anxiety. Then the next one is becoming easily annoyed or irritable. Again, if you're an irritable person and you're generally always annoyed, then this is not something that you're going to say, well, yeah, it's happened just over the last few weeks. But this is more than that. This is getting irritated over little things. This is being annoyed at things that you would normally not bother you. And the 7th one is feeling afraid as if something awful might happen. So Having constant worry and fear over bad things happening is also, something that we'd diagnose. So what would happen is the doctor could do this, but you could also do this yourself. You could go on Google, do the GAD-7. Now, just because you do it, I'm not saying that then you should automatically assume, okay, I've got anxiety, but it will give you an idea, if lots of these things have been happening in the last few weeks, that there's a potential. Every time I speak to clients, I'll always say that you can do these forms for, borderline personality disorder. You can do these forms for anxiety, for depression, but don't do a form online and then diagnose yourself and then say, right, that's it, that's what I need, that's what I've got. Always do it as a thing of saying, potentially, this could be what's happening, and then go to see a certified medical professional so that they can do their assessments and they can put a treatment plan in place. The final thing to end on is, if you're not someone that's comfortable with medication being prescribed to you, don't assume that just because a doctor says to you, this is what you need. You need to negotiate, but also work in collaboration with your doctor. If you're not comfortable with just medication, or if you're not comfortable with the medication, it's not about dismissing what a doctor thinks, because they're the medical professionals. They do know what they're talking about. But at the same time, if it's not comfortable with you, you might say, are there any alternatives? That's a good word to use. Are there any alternatives to just this medication? Or alongside the medication, can I also access therapy? Or can I try therapy first and then come back and decide that on the medication, what are the side effects of the medication? So I think people don't have enough discussions. They go to the doctor diagnoses, gives them the medication, and that's it. So you do have a choice. So I hope you found this video useful. If you have, feel free to share it with others. Feel free to like, to leave your comments. And if I'm sharing this to some of my other platforms, as usual, I love to hear people's comments. And you can head on over to my YouTube channels, which are Marianne Hanson Counselling Service and Marianne Hanson Self-Esteem Coach. Thanks for watching. Bye.